Emisión.net.
Hello again, welcome to Spain Today. My name is Jonathan Dawson and I'm broadcasting as always under the auspices of the Spanish Evangelical Alliance. This week we're looking at a visit by Jaume Llenas, General Secretary of the Alliance, to the first Congress of the Atman Foundation, a group dedicated to increasing harmony and understanding between different religions and cultures. He, along with Julia Doxat-Purser, the socio-political representative of the European Evangelical Alliance, was invited to speak on the subject at the first meeting of this foundation in Madrid. He said that religions should separate themselves from power, be altruistic, but be allowed to participate in social dialogue just like any other group, and not be relegated from public life. His comments come against the background of a government which seems determined to remove all religious dialogue and certainly religious action from the public sphere. And religious groups are very concerned that the government may throw the baby out with the bathwater in its attempts to water down or dilute some of the privileges of the Roman Catholic Church. The Atman Congress brought together an unlikely combination for a roundtable discussion. They included ex-Prime Minister Felipe González, the current head of religious affairs for the government, Mercedes Rico, and the chairman of the Catholic Episcopate, Ricardo Blázquez, along with the two evangelicals I've mentioned before. There were also various figures from the European political and religious world, as well as journalists and ambassadors. Llenas' speech was one of the contributions which was most appreciated by those present at the Congress, and he made four main points. Firstly, he said that Spain had suffered from what he called the Constantinian era, allying religious and state power with the Catholic Church, obviously, in Spain's case, and that this had had tragic consequences. Secondly, he said that religious groups should be self-financing. The authorities have got used to religious groups asking for money, but he said, I don't want money because I'm religious. Each confession should finance itself and only receive what any other organization receives for the social good that it does. Thirdly, he said that ghettos form around religious islands of power and requests for funding, for example, for confessional religious education in state schools, or money for special religious activities. Again, quoting Llenas, he said, I don't want to be special. I want all pupils to learn about different religions. And if society gives me money, I want it to be because I'm giving good ideas or carrying out good projects which help society. Finally, he argued that religious groups should be listened to by the government. Once religions stop seeking power, nor demand special funding because they are religious, they should be seen as part of society and their opinions taken into consideration, just like other groups. Curiously, one of those who supported this idea was Felipe González. Well, what do we make of the Atman Foundation's Congress, and particularly of Llenas' contribution? Well, it's certainly true that Spain has suffered from the era of Constantine. Religious and state power going hand in hand have indeed had tragic consequences for the gospel in Spain, which was all but snuffed out for many, many years. Also, as evangelicals, I think most of us would agree that religious groups ought to be self-financing. If there is money for social action, then they should be able to dip into the pot, as it were, just along with any other group providing that help, but not, as Llenas has said, not because they're religious, but because they're doing society good. It also seems to be true that ghettos form around religious islands of power and requests for funding. And here on AC Press we have argued that the current scramble for money by the religious minorities, including Protestants, could lead to the temptation of being money-driven and also of targeting activities which are likely to receive funding from the government. Also, the danger is that an elite ghetto could be formed by those who are actually the beneficiaries of this funding. And so federations or particular groups or large denominations would seem to be getting an unequal slice of the cake. Finally, religious groups should be listened to by the government. This is a broader issue and an ongoing debate in Spain. Certainly, religious groups should fight for the right to be heard, for their beliefs to enter the marketplace of dialogue and of social debate. Christians, evangelical Christians particularly, have much to offer and generally there is still great ignorance in Spain of the evangelical contribution to politics, to democracy, and to the development of humanity over many, many centuries, particularly within Europe and more recently in other parts of the world as well. So it's important that meetings like the Atman Congress go ahead. It's important that evangelicals are able to present their arguments at these meetings, and it's important too that the authorities, who are represented there of course, begin to listen. Well, thank you too for listening to this broadcast of AC Press. I called it Spain Today at the beginning. I think it should be called Letter from England now, but thank you again for listening anyway. You can find us each week on emission.net or at the website protestantedigital.com. Goodbye for now.
Emisión.net